The training ground stretched across the lower deck of Station Meridian like a small city. Metal walls rose 3 stories high, creating corridors and rooms where soldiers from a dozen different worlds learned to fight together. Smoke from previous exercises still hung in the air, mixing with the recycled atmosphere that tasted slightly of copper and ozone. Ji-won checked her rifle again, though she had already checked it twice. The weapon felt lighter than what she was used to back on Earth. Coalition's standard issue, designed for species with different hand sizes and grip strengths. She adjusted her stance, boots finding purchase on the textured floor. Around her, the other human cadets did the same, their faces showing the same mixture of determination and anxiety. Across the training ground, the alien cadets gathered in their own groups. The Velkrans stood tallest, their insectoid bodies covered in natural armor that gleamed under the harsh lights. The Thaxians clustered together, their reptilian features twisted in what might have been smiles or sneers. It was hard to tell with species you had only known for a few months. The Kronits checked their equipment with methodical precision, their massive frames making even the Velkran look small. Instructor Velmara moved through the groups like a walking tank. Her chitinous shell clicked with each step, and her forearms gestured as she spoke. When she reached the human contingent, her compound eyes focused on Ji-won and the others with an intensity that made Ji-won want to look away. Today's exercise is simple, Velmara announced, her translated voice coming through everyone's earpieces. Capture and hold. Red team defends the central structure. Blue team attacks. Training grenades are active. Exercise ends when one team is completely eliminated or surrenders. Ji-won glanced at Minho, who stood beside her. They had gone through basic training together back on Earth, had survived a brutal selection process that turned regular soldiers into candidates for coalition service. He gave her a slight nod. They were ready, or at least as ready as humans could be in a galaxy that still saw them as the new kids, who did not quite belong. The team split up. Ji-won found herself on blue team, the attackers. The Thaxian cadet named Hyunwoo was also on blue team, and he made sure everyone knew it. He was taller than any human, his scales the color of dried blood, his eyes sharp and calculating. "Stay behind me, humans," Hyunwoo said, his voice carrying that edge of superiority that Ji-won had heard too many times. "This will be over quickly. Your kind is not built for real combat." Ji-won said nothing. She had learned that arguing with people like Hyunwoo was pointless. Better to show them than tell them. Minho, however, was not as patient. "We will see," Minho muttered, just loud enough for Hyunwoo to hear. The Thaxian laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Yes, we will see. We will see how quickly you fail." The exercise began with a loud horn that echoed through the training ground. Blue team moved forward, spreading out according to standard coalition doctrine. Hyunwoo took point, his natural strength allowing him to carry extra ammunition and heavier weapons. The other ends fell into formation behind him, confident and coordinated. The humans moved differently. Ji-won and Minho stayed lower, using cover more aggressively, their movements quicker and less predictable. They had trained for this back on Earth, where being smaller and weaker meant you had to be smarter and faster. Red team opened fire from elevated positions. Training rounds sparked off walls and floors, sensors on everyone's armor registering hits and near misses. The first Kronit went down, his armor flashing red to show elimination. Then a Velkran. Blue team pressed forward, returning fire, working to close the distance. Hyunwoo saw an opportunity. A group of human defenders had taken position behind a low barrier about 30 meters away. They were focused on the main assault, not watching their flank. The Thaxian reached for one of his training grenades, a small sphere that would explode with enough force to register as kills on anyone within 5 meters. "Watch this," Hyunwoo said to the alien next to him. I will show you how we deal with weak species. He threw the grenade with all his considerable strength. The sphere flew in a perfect arc, spinning as it cut through the air. It was a beautiful throw, the kind that would land exactly where he wanted it, right in the middle of the human position. The trajectory was flawless. G1 saw it from the corner of her eye. Time seemed to slow, the way it did sometimes in combat when your brain kicked into a higher gear. She saw the grenade spinning through the air. She saw where it would land. She saw what would happen next. She did not think. Thinking took too long. Instead, she moved. 3 running steps took her out of cover. Her eyes tracked the grenade, calculating speed and distance the way humans had calculated thrown rocks for hundreds of thousands of years. Her right leg came up in a motion drilled into her through years of training. The same kick she had used 1,000 times on soccer fields and training mats. Her boot connected with the grenade in mid-flight. The impact sent a shock up her leg, but her aim was true. The grenade changed direction instantly, arcing back the way it had come. It flew over the surprised heads of the advancing blue team and dropped toward the ground where Hyun-woo stood. Mouth open in shock, the grenade hit the floor at his feet and detonated. The training explosion was not dangerous, just bright and loud enough to simulate the real thing. Hyun-woo's armor sensors lit up red. He was eliminated. The exercise was not even 5 minutes old, and he was already out. Everything stopped. The shooting died away as both teams processed what had just happened. Instructor Velmara stood frozen, all 4 arms still raised in the gesture she had been making when the grenade exploded. The other cadets stared, their various eyes and sensory organs focused on Ji-won, who had landed from her kick and now stood in the open, completely exposed but somehow still alive, because everyone was too shocked to shoot. Velmara's voice cut through the silence. Halt exercise. All teams, stand down. The lights changed from combat red to neutral white. Weapons powered down. Slowly, cadets from both teams emerged from cover, all of them staring at the human female, who had just done something that should not have been possible. Hyun-woo looked down at his red-lit armor, then up at Ji-won. His reptilian features were unreadable, but his body language spoke of fury and humiliation. No one had ever returned his grenade. No one had ever thought to try. Minho appeared at Ji-won's side, his expression carefully neutral, but his eyes showing pride. Nice kick, he said quietly. Ji-won said nothing. She watched Instructor Velmara approach, the massive insectoid's gait somehow conveying confusion and interest in equal measure. This was either going to end very well or very badly, and Ji-won had no idea which. Around them, the other cadets began to whisper, their various languages creating a buzz of sound that the translators could not quite handle. The humans had been dismissed as weak, as soft creatures from a gentle world who had no place among real warriors. That assessment was about to change. The conference room was too cold. Ji-won sat in a chair designed for species larger than humans, her feet barely touching the floor. Across the long table, 5 officers from different coalition worlds watched her with expressions she could not read. Instructor Velmara stood to one side, her 4 arms folded in a gesture that might have meant anything. Cadet Ji-won, the Velkran officer began, his translator making his voice sound mechanical and flat. Do you understand why you are here? Yes, sir, Ji-won said, keeping her voice level. The grenade incident during training. Incident. Hyun-woo spat from where he stood near the back of the room. She violated proper combat protocol. The exercise was meant to test standard responses, not encourage wild improvisation. The Kronid officer, a female with scars across her gray skin, made a rumbling sound. The exercise had clear rules. Nowhere in those rules does it say that thrown objects cannot be intercepted. That is because no one would try something so reckless. Hyun-woo shot back. It is common sense. You do not intercept grenades. You take cover like civilized soldiers. Ji-won kept her mouth shut. Commander Soman had briefed her before this meeting, had told her to stay quiet and let the officers talk. The humans were still on probation in the coalition, still trying to prove that they deserved a place among the established military powers. One wrong word could undo months of careful diplomacy. "The question," said a third officer. This one, a species Ji-won did not recognize with too many joints in its arms, is whether this represents a dangerous precedent. If we allow such unorthodox tactics, where does it end? Velmara stirred. "If I may speak, sirs." The officers gestured for her to continue. "I have been reviewing human military history. It is quite extensive for such a young species. They have been fighting wars on their homeworld for their entire recorded history." "Exactly," Hyunwoo interjected. "Proof that they are a violent, unpredictable species, not suitable for coalition forces. Or," Velmara continued, her voice sharp enough to cut through Hyunwoo's objection, "proof that they have experience we lack. The humans come from what their scientists call a death world. Every predator on their planet is stronger, faster, or better armed than they are. Yet they became the dominant species. How?" Silence fell over the room. Jae-won had never heard anyone frame Earth's history quite that way before. "I have assigned Specialist Daeho to analyze this question," Velmara said. "His findings are relevant to this hearing." A Vulcan male entered the room, carrying a datapad. Daeho was smaller than Velmara, his carapace showing signs of age. He nodded to the assembled officers and activated a holographic display above the table. Images from Earth appeared. Ancient humans hunting with spears. Medieval soldiers using crossbows. Modern infantry with rifles. Each image showed the same pattern. Humans using tools and tactics to overcome opponents that were physically superior. "Humans are persistence hunters," Daeho explained, his voice carrying an academic excitement. "On their world, they chase prey for hours, sometimes days, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. They cannot outrun most predators, so they learn to outlast them. They cannot overpower most prey, so they learn to outthink them." More images appeared. Battles from human history, showing smaller forces defeating larger ones through terrain advantage, ambush tactics, psychological warfare. The officers leaned forward, their attention caught despite themselves. They throw objects with frightening accuracy because their ancestors hunted by throwing rocks and spears. Daeho continued. They understand projectile physics instinctively because those who did not understand starved or died. Cadet Ji-won did not do anything unusual for a human. She simply responded the way millions of years of evolution trained her species to respond. "This is all very interesting," the Cronid officer said, "but it does not answer our question. Should we permit such tactics in coalition training?" Before anyone could answer, the door opened again. Commander Soman entered, followed by another human Ji-won did not recognize. The newcomer was older, maybe 50, with gray in her hair and scars on her hands. She wore the insignia of a coalition liaison officer. "Forgive my interruption," Soman said, "but I believe you should hear from someone with more experience. This is Specialist Daeho's human counterpart, Officer Kyungmi. She has been studying coalition military doctrine." Kyungmi bowed slightly to the assembled officers, a gesture of respect that still looked strange when directed at alien species. "Sirs, I have spent 6 months observing coalition training methods. They are excellent for creating strong, disciplined soldiers. But there is a weakness." Several officers bristled at the word. Kyungmi continued calmly. "Coalition forces have not fought a major war in 3,000 years. Your training is based on traditions from that last great conflict. Those traditions assume certain things, that opponents will fight honorably, that they will follow predictable patterns, that superior strength and technology will prevail. And they will not? The Vulcan officer asked, his tone dangerous. Not always, Kyungmi said. Humans have a saying, no plan survives contact with the enemy. We have learned through bitter experience that the side that adapts fastest usually wins. Not the strongest, not the best equipped, the most adaptable. She gestured to Ji-won. This cadet saw an unexpected opportunity and took it. In human military tradition, that is called initiative, and we value it highly. Perhaps more highly than we value following protocol. Yunwoo slammed his fist on the wall. This is exactly the problem. Humans do not respect order. They do not respect tradition. They think their few thousand years of primitive warfare make them experts. Careful, cadet, the Cronid officer warned. You are speaking of coalition members. Members who have not earned their place, Hyunwoo said. But his voice was quieter now. The officers conferred among themselves in low voices. Their translators turned off for privacy. Ji-won sat still, trying to control her breathing. Her future in the coalition, and possibly the future of all human participation, hung on whatever they decided next. Finally, the Vulcan officer spoke. We have reached a decision. Cadet Ji-won's actions were unorthodox but not illegal. She will not be punished. However, he paused, looking directly at her. We recommend greater restraint in future exercises. The coalition values teamwork and predictability. We must be able to rely on each other. It was not a victory, but it was not a defeat either. Ji-won nodded. Yes, sir. I understand. You are dismissed, cadet. Ji-won stood and left, Somin and Kyungmi following. Behind them, she could hear the officers continuing their discussion, voices rising and falling in debate. The door closed, cutting off the sound in the corridor. Somin exhaled slowly. That could have gone worse. It could have gone better, Kyungmi said. They are afraid of us. Afraid of what we represent. Change, Ji-won said quietly. It was the first time she had spoken freely since entering that room. They have been doing things the same way for thousands of years. We show up and kick their grenades back at them. Kyungmi smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. Literally, in your case. Word has spread, you know. Every cadet on this station knows what you did. Some think you are reckless. Some think you are brilliant. Either way, they are all talking about humans now. They walked back toward the human quarters, passing groups of alien cadets who stopped their conversations to watch. Some nodded respectfully. Others glared. Ji-won met each gaze evenly, not challenging but not backing down either. Minho was waiting outside the human barracks. How did it go? Not guilty, Ji-won said, but also not exactly praised. Good enough, Minho replied. Listen, you need to see this. He led her to the common area where several humans were watching a holographic display. It showed footage from the training exercise, the moment when Ji-won kicked the grenade. Someone had slowed it down, analyzed the physics, added calculations showing the split-second timing required. This has been viewed 10,000 times in the last 2 hours, one of the watching humans said. Half the station has seen it. They are calling it impossible. It is not impossible, Ji-won said. It is just hard. For them, maybe, Minho said. For us, we have been kicking things our whole lives. Soccer, football, martial arts. Every human kid grows up learning to judge flying objects. We just never thought about it as a military skill. Ji-won watched the footage loop again, seeing herself move in slow motion. It looked more impressive than it had felt in the moment. In the moment, it had just been reaction, training, instinct. All the things that made humans human. Outside the barracks, she could hear the sounds of the station continuing its routine. But something had changed. The humans were no longer invisible, no longer just the weak newcomers to be ignored or dismissed. They were something else now. something the coalition had not expected. They were a question that demanded an answer. 3 days after the hearing, Instructor Velmara called the human cadets to a special briefing. G1 filed in with the others, 20 humans in a room designed for 50 larger beings. They looked small, sitting in chairs meant for Kronitz and Valkrin, but they sat with straight backs and level gazes. "You have caused quite a disruption," Velmara began without preamble. "The grenade incident has sparked debates throughout the coalition military. Some see it as proof of human potential. Others see it as proof of human recklessness." She paused, her compound eyes reflecting the overhead lights. "I have designed an exercise to settle the question." A holographic map appeared above the briefing table. It showed a compound with high walls, guard towers, and multiple entry points. Classic defensive terrain. "This is Fortress Station Delta, one of our training facilities. Tomorrow, you 20 humans will defend it against 100 coalition cadets. Your objective is simple. Hold the fortress for 2 hours. If you last that long, you win. If the attackers breach the inner sanctum, they win." Minho whistled low. 5-to-1 odds. "Correct," Velmara said. "Standard coalition doctrine gives the defender approximately a 3-to-1 advantage in fortified positions. With 5-to-1 odds, and with the attackers being physically superior in strength and endurance, you should lose within 30 minutes. She leaned forward. "Prove me wrong." After she left, the humans gathered around the holographic map. G1 studied the fortress layout, her mind already working through possibilities. Beside her, Yuna was doing the same, her specialty in demolitions making her see the terrain differently than most. "They expect us to fight like they would," said Juno, the communications specialist. "Static defense, hold the walls, traditional tactics." "Which means we do not do that," G1 said. "We have 2 hours to prepare the fortress before the exercise starts. That is our real advantage. Against stronger, tougher opponents with better endurance?" Minho shook his head. "We need more than preparation. We need a plan that makes their strengths irrelevant." For the next hour, they talked. Ideas flew back and forth, some practical, some wild, all of them built on one central truth. Humans could not win a straight fight against coalition forces 5 times their number. They needed to change the nature of the fight itself. The next morning, the humans arrived at Fortress Station Delta before dawn. The structure was impressive. 3-story walls surrounding a central keep, with towers at each corner and a single main gate. It was designed to be defended by 40 soldiers. 20 would have to be enough. 2 hours until exercise begins, Velmara announced over the comm system. "Defenders, prepare your positions. Attackers, stand by." G1 split the humans into teams. Yuna and 4 others immediately went to work with the fortress's supply of training explosives and building materials. Jonho climbed to the highest tower and began setting up his communications equipment. The rest started modifying the fortress according to the plan they had made. They did not reinforce the walls the way coalition doctrine suggested. Instead, they weakened certain sections deliberately, creating false weak points. They dug shallow trenches inside the compound, not outside. They moved defensive weapons away from the obvious positions and set them up in unexpected angles. Yuna rigged explosives throughout the fortress, focusing on choke points and corridors. "If they breach here," she explained to G1, pointing at the main gate, "the explosion will bring down debris to block the path. They will have to go around, which funnels them here." She pointed to a narrow courtyard, where we have overlapping fields of fire. "They will adapt," G1 said. "They are not stupid." "Then we adapt faster," Yuna replied with a grin. "That is what we do." As the 2-hour mark approached, G1 climbed to the wall and looked out at the assembled attackers. Captain Thornton led them, a massive cronid whose armor looked like it could shrug off anything the humans had. Behind him stood Velcrin warriors, Thaxian scouts, and soldiers from a dozen other species. All of them stronger than humans. All of them confident. Hyunwoo was there too, his red scales bright in the morning light. He saw Ji-won watching and raised his weapon in a mocking salute. She did not respond. "All units, exercise begins now," Velmara's voice announced. The attackers came fast, using their superior speed to close the distance. The humans let them come. No defensive fire from the walls, no attempt to slow them down. The attackers must have thought it would be even easier than expected. The first wave hit the main gate with a portable ram. The gate, which the humans had deliberately weakened, collapsed after 3 hits. Attackers poured through, shouting in triumph. They made it 5 meters before Yuna triggered the first demolition charge. The explosion was not large enough to hurt anyone through their armor, but it brought down carefully rigged sections of wall. Debris blocked the gate completely, trapping the first wave inside a small courtyard with nowhere to go. From windows and firing positions the attackers had not noticed. Humans opened fire. The trap group went down in seconds, their armor flashing red as training rounds found their marks. The attackers outside the gate regrouped, already adapting. They split into multiple groups, looking for other ways in. "Southwest wall, they are climbing," Junho reported from his tower. His voice was calm, like he was commenting on the weather. 30 seconds until they reached the top. "Let them," Ji-won replied. She was watching from a position the attackers could not see, using a periscope made from a mirror and training equipment. "Spring trap 3 when they are all up." The Velcrin climbers were fast, their multiple limbs giving them natural advantages. They reached the top of the southwest wall and began to secure it, setting up a firing position to cover their advance. Below, more attackers prepared to follow. Junho triggered trap 3. The section of wall that Velcrin stood on was not actually attached to the rest of the structure. The humans had carefully cut it free and rigged it with supports that could be released remotely. When Junho activated the mechanism, the entire section tilted outward like a drawbridge. The Velcrin, caught completely off guard, tumbled backward into their own troops below. Chaos erupted as bodies tangled together, heavy armor making it impossible to recover quickly. Human shooters appeared from hidden positions and eliminated the pile of confused attackers before they could reorganize. 68 remaining, Minho called out, tracking the elimination count. 42 minutes elapsed. Captain Thajin's voice boomed across the battlefield. "All units, converge on the north entrance. Full assault, maximum force. We end this now." The remaining attackers gathered at the north side of the fortress, preparing for an overwhelming push. This was what they were trained for: direct assault, using superior numbers and firepower to crush resistance. No tricks would save the humans from this, or so they thought. "Everyone fall back to second positions," Ji-won ordered. "Abandon the walls." "Are you sure?" Minho asked. "If they take the walls, they control the whole fortress." "Trust me," Ji-won said. The humans retreated from the outer defenses, pulling back to the central keep. The attackers saw them go and surged forward with renewed energy. They breached the north wall unopposed, poured into the fortress courtyard, and spread out to secure the area. "Inner sanctum is right there," Thargan called out. "One final push, and we have them." Every attacker converged on the keep, flooding into the narrow corridors and rooms. They were packed tight, shoulder to shoulder, overwhelming force concentrated in a small space. Exactly where the humans wanted them. Junho, still in his tower outside the keep, watched through his sensors. "All targets inside the kill zone," he reported. "Do it," Ji-won said quietly. Yuna had spent most of their preparation time rigging the keep. Every room, every corridor, every defensive position had been wired with training explosives. Not to hurt anyone, but to simulate what would happen if a real fortress fell with defenders inside. All the charges went off simultaneously. The explosion was massive, a rolling boom that shook the entire fortress. Every single attacker inside the keep saw their armor flash red at the same instant. Eliminated, all of them. Gone in one coordinated strike. The observers' gallery, where coalition officers watched the exercise, erupted in shocked silence. Captain Thonjon stood in the smoking ruins of the keep, staring at his red-lit armor in disbelief. "Exercise complete," Velmara's voice announced. Time elapsed. 53 minutes. Attackers eliminated. 100. Defenders eliminated. 0. Victory to the defending force. The humans emerged from their actual final positions, hidden bunkers they had built outside the keep. They had never planned to defend the fortress itself. They had planned to turn it into a trap. Jiwan walked across the courtyard to where Thargan stood. The massive Kronet looked down at her, his expression unreadable. "How?" he finally asked. "You assumed we would fight like you would fight," Jiwan said. "Defend what we were supposed to defend. Stand where we were supposed to stand. But we are not you." "This was dishonorable," Humu said, appearing from the group of eliminated attackers. "You tricked us. You abandoned your posts. This is not how soldiers fight. It is how humans fight," Minho said, stepping up beside Jiwan. "We do not have honor that makes us predictable. We have survival that makes us creative." Velmara descended from the observer's gallery, her forearms gesturing in what might have been approval or concern. Most unorthodox, the victory at Fortress Station Delta changed everything and nothing at the same time. In the human barracks, morale was high. Cadets who had spent months being looked down upon now walked with their heads up. But in the wider station, tensions grew like storm clouds gathering. Jiwan noticed it first in the cafeteria, where before the different species had mixed freely. Now there were clear divisions. Coalition cadets clustered together, speaking in low voices and casting glances at the human tables. Some of those glances held curiosity. Others held resentment. "They are scared of us," Yuna said quietly, picking at her meal. The food was designed to be edible for all species, which meant it tasted like nothing much to everyone. "We broke their undefeated exercise record, made their best tactics look useless. We won one exercise," Jiwan replied. "That does not make us better than them." "Try telling them that," Minho said, nodding toward a group of Thaxian cadets who were staring openly at their table. "Half the station thinks we cheated. The other half wants to learn from us. And nobody knows what to do about it." Commander Selman appeared at their table, her expression tight. "Jiwan, you are wanted in conference room 7. Immediately." The walk through the station corridors felt longer than usual. Selman did not speak, which was never a good sign. When they reached the conference room, Jiwan understood why. The room was packed. Coalition officers she had never seen before sat around the expanded table. At the head sat a human woman in an admiral's uniform, her gray hair pulled back severely, her eyes sharp and calculating. This was Admiral Kyung-suk, the highest-ranking human in Coalition space. "Cadet Jiwan reporting as ordered, sir," Jiwan said, standing at attention. "At ease," Kyung-suk said. Her voice was calm, but carried weight. "You have caused quite a situation, Cadet. Sit down. We need to talk about what happens next." Jiwan sat. Around the table, she recognized some faces. Instructor Velmara was there. So was Specialist Deho. But there were others too. Officers with expressions that ranged from interested to hostile. "The fortress exercise has forced a decision," said an officer Jiwan did not recognize. a being with multiple eye stalks that moved independently. This was Counselor Vexter, she realized, a senior member of the Coalition's Military Oversight Committee. Human tactics are too different from established doctrine. We must decide if this difference is acceptable. Meaning what exactly? Admiral Kyung-suk asked, her tone dangerously polite. Meaning that some of us question whether humans belong in coalition forces, Vexter said bluntly. Your methods are unpredictable. You do not value tradition. You win through deception rather than strength. We win, Kyung-suk said. Is that not the point? Not if it corrupts our fundamental values, another officer interjected, a Vulcan with ceremonial scars. The Coalition has maintained peace for 3,000 years through strength and honor. Humans introduce chaos. With respect, Valmara spoke up, chaos is not always bad. I have studied human military history extensively now. They survive because they adapt. Perhaps that is what we need more of. Or, perhaps, Vexter countered, it is exactly what we need less of. Adaptation without foundation is just randomness. The Coalition succeeds because we are predictable, reliable, stable. The argument continued, voices rising and falling in waves. Ji-won sat silent, feeling like a specimen being examined. Everything she had done, every instinct she had followed, was being picked apart and judged. Admiral Kyung-suk let them talk for several minutes before raising her hand. The room fell silent. I understand your concerns, she said, but removing humans from coalition forces is not a decision to make lightly. We have contributed resources, personnel, technology. We have earned our place here. Have you? Vexter asked. Or have you simply caused trouble and called it innovation? Before anyone could answer, the door opened. Hyunwoo entered, followed by two other Thaxian cadets. He moved with barely controlled anger, his scales seeming darker than usual. Forgive the interruption, Hyunwoo said, though his tone suggested he was not sorry at all. But I believe I have a solution to this debate. Vexter gestured for him to continue. Hyunwoo turned to face Ji-won directly. I challenge the human Ji-won to single combat. A formal duel under Coalition honor traditions. If she wins, humans have proven they deserve to stay. If I win, they admit their tactics are inferior and conform to proper military standards. The room erupted. Officers shouted objections or support. Admiral Kyung-suk's face went carefully neutral, which Ji-won had learned meant she was furious. Commander Soman looked like she wanted to throw something. This is ridiculous, Soman said. You cannot stake humanity's future on a single fight. Why not? Hyunwoo replied. Humans claim their way is better. Let them prove it in honest combat, without tricks or traps. Strength against strength. Cadet Hyunwoo, Valmara said, her voice carrying warning. A formal duel is a serious matter. Are you certain this is what you want? I am certain that humans have embarrassed me twice now, Hyunwoo said. First with a lucky kick, then with cowardly tactics. I want the chance to show what real warriors can do. Ji-won stood slowly. Every eye in the room turned to her. I accept, she said. No, Admiral Kyung-suk said immediately. Ji-won, sit down. This is not your decision to make alone. With respect, Admiral, it is exactly my decision, Ji-won said. He challenged me personally. Coalition Honor Code says I can accept or refuse. If I refuse, we look weak. If I accept and lose, at least we fought. And if you accept and get hurt, Soman demanded. Thaxians are stronger than humans, heavier, better natural armor. This is not a fair fight. Neither was Earth, Ji-won said quietly. We were not the strongest species there either. But we are still here. Kyung-suk studied her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. It was not a happy smile. You remind me of myself at your age. Stubborn, idealistic, too brave for your own good. She turned to the assembled officers. Very well. If Cadet Hyunwoo wants a formal duel, he can have one. Under full coalition rules and observation. Vexter nodded. Agreed. The duel will take place in 3 days, in the Grand Arena. Hand-to-hand combat, no weapons, no armor. First to yield or be incapacitated loses. 3 days, Hyunwoo said, looking at Ji-won with something like satisfaction. Prepare yourself, human. This time, your tricks will not save you. After the meeting ended, Ji-won found herself surrounded by the other humans. They had heard about the challenge within minutes. The station's information network was faster than any official communication system. You cannot fight him, Yuna said. He is twice your size. I have to, Ji-won replied. If I back down now, every human on this station becomes a target. They will know we only win through tricks. But we do win through tricks, Minho pointed out. That is the whole point. We are not strong enough to fight fair. Then I need to figure out how to fight fair and still win, Ji-won said. That evening, she found instructor Valmara in the training hall. The massive insectoid was working through combat forms, her forearms moving in precise, deadly patterns. She stopped when Ji-won approached. You came to ask for advice, Valmara said. It was not a question. Yes, sir. I need to understand how to beat someone stronger than me without using tactics they will call tricks. Valmara was quiet for a moment. Then she gestured for Ji-won to follow her to a viewing screen. She pulled up footage of various species fighting, showing their different styles and strengths. Humans think they are weak, Valmara said. But you are wrong. You have strengths you do not recognize because you take them for granted. She switched to footage of human athletes. You endure. You adapt. You learn faster than any species I have studied. These are not weaknesses. They will not help me against Hyunwoo's strength, Ji-won said. No, Valmara agreed. But they will help you survive long enough to find his weakness. Every fighter has one. The strong ones just hide it better. She turned to look at Ji-won with all her compound eyes. I should not tell you this, but I have fought Thaxians before. They rely on power because it has always worked. They do not adapt well when their power fails them. So I make his power fail, Ji-won said slowly. If you can, Valmara replied. But understand, Cadet, if you lose this fight, it will be used against all humans. The opponents of your kind will claim it proves you are inferior. Is that weight you want to carry? Ji-won thought about the grenade arcing through the air. The fortress filled with explosives. Every moment in her life, when someone had told her she could not do something because she was too small, too weak, too human. I'm already carrying it, she said. I have been carrying it since we joined the coalition. Maybe since before. This is just the first time the weight has a name and a face. Then train, Valmara said. And remember, strength is just strength. Intelligence is everything. For the next 3 days, Ji-won trained harder than she ever had. She studied Thaxian physiology, looking for weaknesses. She practiced falling, rolling, using momentum against superior force. She ran until her legs burned and fought training dummies until her knuckles bled. The other humans helped. Minho sparred with her, pushing her harder than friendship would normally allow. Yuna analyzed fight footage, breaking down every movement. Junho set up reaction training to improve her already quick. The Grand Arena was designed to hold 5,000 spectators. Today, every seat was full. Cadets from every species pressed against the railings, their various eyes and sensory organs focused on the fighting circle below. Officers stood in designated areas, their postures rigid with attention. This was more than a duel between two cadets. This was a judgment. Ji-won walked through the entrance tunnel. her footsteps echoing against metal walls. She wore standard training clothes, light and flexible, designed for human movement. No armor, no weapons. Just her and whatever she could bring to the fight. Commander Someone walked beside her, silent until they reached the final doorway. "You do not have to do this," she said quietly. "We can find another way." "There is no other way," Ji-won replied. "They need to see what happens when a human fights fair. Win or lose, they need to see it." "Then do not lose," Someone said, managing a tight smile. "I hate writing condolence reports." Ji-won stepped into the arena. The roar of the crowd hit her like a physical force. Thousands of voices in dozens of languages, all filtered through translators that could not quite keep up. The sound merged into a wall of noise that pressed down from all sides. Across the circle, Hyunwoo emerged from the opposite tunnel. He looked bigger than Ji-won remembered, his red scales gleaming under the arena lights. His muscles moved like cables under his skin, each step showing the power of a species evolved on a world where gravity was 20% higher than Earth's. He raised his arms to the crowd, and they responded with cheers. That shook the arena floor. Instructor Velmara stood at the center of the circle, her forearms raised for silence. Gradually, the noise died down. "This is a formal duel under Coalition honor rules," Velmara announced, her voice amplified throughout the arena. "Hand-to-hand combat. No weapons. No armor. Fight continues until one combatant yields or is rendered unable to continue. Medical teams standing by." She looked at each fighter in turn. "Do you both understand and accept these terms?" "I accept," Imwoo said, his voice carrying confidence. "I accept," Ji-won said, keeping her voice steady. "Then take your positions." They moved to opposite sides of the circle, 20 meters apart. Ji-won controlled her breathing, using techniques she had learned from every martial art humanity had developed over thousands of years. Her heart rate slowed. Her vision sharpened. Time seemed to stretch. "Begin," Velmara said, and stepped back. Hyunwoo charged immediately. It was a smart move, using his speed to close distance before Ji-won could think too much. His clawed feet tore marks in the arena floor as he built momentum. When he was close enough, he swung a massive fist at her head, putting his whole body behind the blow. Ji-won ducked under it. The fist passed through empty air where her head had been a moment before, the wind of its passage ruffling her hair. She spun away, creating distance, not engaging yet. Hyunwoo adapted quickly. He did not chase her in a straight line but cut angles, trying to trap her against the arena wall. His tail whipped behind him for balance, his natural armor plates shifting as he moved. He was not just strong. He was trained, experienced, dangerous. He caught her with a glancing blow to the shoulder. The impact spun Ji-won around and sent pain shooting down her arm. She rolled with it, turning the spin into momentum that carried her away from his follow-up strike. Her shoulder would bruise, but nothing was broken. "Not yet," the crowd roared. They had seen first blood, or at least first contact. Many of them had expected the fight to end with that hit. But Ji-won was still moving, still fighting. Hyunwoo pressed his advantage. He came at her with a combination of strikes that would have overwhelmed most opponents. High, low, sweeping attacks meant to catch her no matter how she dodged. Each blow carried enough force to end the fight if it landed clean. Ji-won gave ground. She focused on defense, on reading his patterns. Velmara had been right. Hyunwoo relied on power. His strikes were devastating but predictable. He favored his right side. His recovery after big swings left small openings. His confidence made him repeat tactics that worked, but knowing his weaknesses and exploiting them were different things. Ji-won needed time, and time was the one resource Hyunwoo controlled. Every second she stayed defensive was a second he could use his superior strength and endurance. She needed to change something. G1 stopped retreating. When Hyunwoo threw his next punch, she stepped into it instead of away. The move surprised him enough that his aim faltered slightly. The strike hit her side instead of her ribs, painful but not crippling. And it put her inside his reach, where his greater strength had less leverage. She struck at his knee, not trying to hurt it but testing its flexibility. Then his elbow joint, his neck where the armor plates met. Quick strikes, each one gathering information. Where was he flexible? Where was he vulnerable? Where did the armor have gaps? Hyunwoo snarled and grabbed for her. If he got his hands on her, the fight was over. His grip strength would crush bones. Ji-won twisted away from his reaching claws, but not quite fast enough. He caught her training shirt and yanked her back toward him. Instead of resisting, Ji-won went with the pull. She jumped toward him, using his own force to add momentum. Her knee came up hard, aiming for the soft tissue under his jaw where the translator implant created a necessary gap in his armor. The strike connected. Hyunwoo's head snapped back and he released her shirt reflexively. Jaewon landed in a roll and came up 5 meters away, breathing hard. The crowd's noise changed. There was surprise in it now, and something that might have been respect. The human had landed a real hit. Not a lucky strike, but a deliberate, calculated attack that found a weakness in superior armor. Hyunwoo touched his jaw, and his hand came away with a smear of blood. His own blood. His expression changed from confident to dangerous. "You will regret that," he said, and charged again. This time he was not trying to end the fight quickly. He was trying to hurt her. The strikes came faster, harder, with less control and more anger. Ji-won could not dodge them all. She took hits to her legs, her arms, her body. Each impact sent pain shooting through her nervous system. Each hit reminded her that she was fighting someone who could break her with a lucky strike. But anger made him sloppy. And sloppy was something Ji-won could use. She timed her counter for when he overextended, putting too much power into a strike that missed. His momentum carried him past his center of balance. Ji-won swept his leg, not with strength, but with timing. He was already off balance. She just helped him fall. Hyunwoo went down hard, his greater mass working against him. Before he could recover, Ji-won was on him, using a joint lock that turned his own strength into a trap. The more he pulled, the more pressure went on his elbow. It was basic physics, leverage defeating raw power, but she could not hold him. He was too strong, too heavy. He broke the hold through sheer force and threw her off. They both scrambled to their feet, circling now, both breathing hard. Ji-won's body was screaming. Every muscle hurt. Her vision blurred at the edges from impacts to her head. She tasted blood from a cut inside her cheek. By every physical measure, she was losing this fight, but she was still standing. And Hyunwoo, for the first time, looked uncertain. "Why will you not stay down?" he demanded, frustration clear in his voice. "You are weaker. Accept it." "No," Ji-won said simply. "Humans do not accept limits. We change them." She came at him again, but this time she did not just dodge and counter. She attacked. Quick strikes to keep him defensive, then sudden changes in rhythm to catch him off guard. She used everything humans had learned about fighting across millennia of warfare. Boxing combinations, Muay Thai kicks, judo throws that used his weight against him, wrestling holds designed for smaller fighters against larger opponents. Hyunwoo could not adapt fast enough. He had trained in one style, the traditional Thaxian combat method that relied on power and armor. Ji-won was showing him a dozen different styles, switching between them so fast he could not develop counters. She caught him with a kick to the side that made him stumble. Before he could recover, she executed a throw that sent him to the ground again. This time, she did not try to hold him. She knew she could not. Instead, she struck at vulnerable points while he was down. The soft tissue behind his knees, the joints in his armor, places where flesh was exposed by necessity. He roared and surged up, throwing her off through sheer strength. But he was slower now. The impacts were adding up. His breathing was labored, and Ji-won understood something crucial. Endurance was her advantage. Humans were persistence hunters. They ran prey to exhaustion. She did not need to be stronger. She just needed to last longer. They fought for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Hyeon-woo's strikes became slower, more desperate. Ji-won's movements stayed quick, fueled by adrenaline and the sheer refusal to quit that was coded into human DNA. Finally, Hyung-woo made a mistake. He put everything into one massive strike, a blow meant to end the fight regardless of cost. Ji-won saw it coming. Saw the commitment, the loss of balance, the opening it would create. She stepped inside his reach, letting his fist pass over her shoulder. His momentum carried him forward, unable to stop. Ji-won hooked his leg and used his own charging wig to help him fall. This time, when he went down, she was ready. She got behind him, her arm around his neck in a chokehold that every human fighter knew. Not crushing his windpipe,